Coming up on The Disturbance, we've got a very special episode for you today. It is As the Kyrie Turns. That's right. We are going to exclusively cover the world of Kyrie. Some people might think it's flat. Other people, like 99.99999% of the world, know the world is round. Kyrie has taken it to a whole new level of ridiculousness. And it's flat out, if you will, delusional to think that the Brooklyn Nets are going to give a guy that has missed over 40% of his contractual games a $200 million plus extension. I've got that plus my thoughts on Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors winning the NBA title. All of that, and trust me, a whole lot more coming up on the big show today.
Live and on tape from the heart of Silicon Valley. This is The Disturbance, hosted by Dave Daba. Now to the host, who can't stop ripping on players, coaches, and unbelievably bad front office management, Dave Daba.
It is super late night on Wednesday, June 23rd of the year 2022. I'm Dave Daba, and thanks so much for joining me on The Disturbance today. All right, coming up at the end of the show, we are going to just put a bow on it and wrap up the 21-22 National Basketball Association season, and we'll talk a little bit about how way too many people, despite Steph Curry's NBA Most Valuable Finals Player Award, are still disrespecting Steph Curry, Skip Bayless. We'll cover that for you at the end of the show. But first, a special show for you all today. Now, as I've mentioned before, we are now simulcasting on YouTube, so you have a chance to actually check out my mug. Do check out our Disturbance channel there. For those of you listening on traditional podcasts, thanks for tuning in. Now, I started off the show today. I was trying to come up with like a soap opera that best reflects one Kyrie Irving. And the best one that I could come up with, look, I looked at Days of Kyrie's Lives, General Kyrie, as in General Hospital. But As the Kyrie Turns seemed to be the most appropriate soap opera to take a look at when discussing Kyrie Irving. Now, for those of you that don't know, As the World was a CBS-run soap opera, which had a 50-year plus run. It started in 1956, and ended in 2010. So much to talk about when we're talking about Kyrie Irving. Now, the first thing I wanted to do is just get this out of the way. Now, Kyrie has requested a $200 million 4-year contract extension. He has a player option for just under $37 million. Now, if Kyrie wants, Kyrie can walk away on June 29th from that player option and hit the free agency market, at which point most teams would be able to sign him for something under $10 million. For example, the Los Angeles Lakers, if they were going to sign Kyrie, if he exercised his player option, they would sign Kyrie for $6 million for the first year. That means Kyrie Irving, the genius financial person that he is, would be leaving over $31 million on the table to join LeBron James and play Robin again with Batman. Now, are things so bad with Kevin Durant that Kyrie Irving wants to make a move? Could the Brooklyn Nets actually sign Kyrie to an extension and then do a sign and trade deal and then bring in, I don't know, AD and maybe Russell Westbrook? Look, let me just say this. There's absolutely nothing about Kevin Durant right now that would suggest in any way that Kevin Durant wants to play with Russell Westbrook again. Russell Westbrook is clearly 5 years past his prime and quickly quickly sliding down the backside of Career Mountain. He's going to show up at the chalet and he's going to ask for some wine out of a box. That is the stage of the career that Russell Westbrook's actually at. So Kyrie will probably not be part of any sort of sign and trade deal with the Nets. Now, if you're the Nets and you look at this 3-year experiment that they've had with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, and a couple other players to be named later, then you have to say it has been a complete and utter failure to this point. No disrespect at all to Kevin Durant. He's certainly given his effort. And while Kyrie was back for the playoffs against the Boston Celtics, in which they got swept by the 4th seed Boston Celtics, a healthy Kyrie Irving, a healthy Kevin Durant, and several other key role players got swept by the Boston Celtics in year 3 of this particular experiment. So if you're the Brooklyn Nets, if you're the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, if you're the general manager of the Brooklyn Nets, and you're looking at all of the antics that Kyrie Irving has done on and off the court, and we'll get into a lot of those in just a little bit, but if you look at all of those things and you consider that he has missed 40% of his games, he gave up $17 million, didn't play because he didn't get COVID tested. Now, of course, we can look back at the rules that the city of New York had, and I think most of us can agree that the last 6 months of those rules were flat out ridiculous. Still, he missed over 40% of his games. He actively encouraged players to not play in the bubble. Look, Kyrie, at the same time, is a bit of an enigma because he has done a lot of good things off the court. And then there's the things that he's done off the court that, quite frankly, are so difficult to explain. If we go back to 2017, when Kyrie uttered those famous words of believing that the world is flat. That's right, folks. You are all living on a flat earth. I encourage you to go outside tonight and look up at the sky, and if you've got a really big view, you might be able to see a bit of a round shape. I'm just saying, it is not a flat earth. Kyrie went down, as he called it, the YouTube conspiracy hole, and started to watch a bunch of YouTube videos and came out and made it sound like a fact. He supported this. He didn't apologize for it for well over a year. Finally, back in 2018, he was at a conference, and Kyrie can be very personable if he wants to be. Kyrie can be a really strong team player if he wants to be. Kyrie can be a great interview if he wants to be. In this particular case, he was excited to be there. He was excited to explain himself. He apologized to all the science teachers in the world about what he said about the world being flat. But if you go back and watch that entire interview, I came away with it thinking that behind closed doors, when Kyrie walks out into his backyard every night and looks up at that round sky, he still believes secretly that the world is flat. This is literally, and it's important that we mention it, this is literally who you're dealing with if you're the Brooklyn Nets. So you're the Brooklyn Nets. You've got this guy who at the end of the season came out and said, I most certainly am going to stay. I'm going to be with number 7. I'm going to stay with Kevin Durant. I'm looking forward to the summer, and I'm not going anywhere. And then to find out that he's threatening to not pick up his just under $37 million player contract extension on June 9th, and it's threatening to simply walk away because the Brooklyn Nets are not going to give him his $200 million extension that he clearly doesn't deserve, then you have to really wonder, what should the Brooklyn Nets do? Should the Brooklyn Nets cave and give Kyrie a bit of an extension? Maybe a National Football League head coach is on the hot seat. But instead of having a lame duck coach in the National Football League, you give him a 1 or 2 year extension. Is that what the Brooklyn Nets management should do? Or should they just simply not do anything and see if Kyrie calls their bluff, or if Kyrie bluffs and actually just accepts the $37 million contract without an actual extension? If I'm the Brooklyn Nets, I'm 3 years into this, I've had enough. The most I do is I give him a 1 or 2 year contract extension. That's the most that I do. And if I decide and I sit back and I go, I don't even want to do that, then I say, just let it ride, call his bluff. And if Kyrie wants to leave on top of the $17 million that he lost earlier this year and last year, if he wants to leave another $30+ million on the table and be in the hole for just under $50 million to go to the Los Angeles Lakers, to be Robin, to an aging Batman, and a roster, which, by the way, is considerably worse. There is no Patty Mills on that Los Angeles Laker team, Rob Pelinka. I'm just saying, if you look at the rosters up and down, as bad as the sub players are on the Brooklyn Nets, they are considerably better than what the Los Angeles Lakers currently have on their roster today. All right, so that is as the Kyrie world turns for you, North America. Finally today, I wanted to take a step back. We are about a week. It's been over a week now, I think, almost a week since the Golden State Warriors won their 4th NBA title in 8 years. They beat the Boston Celtics in Game 6, as you all know. The big parade happened on Monday here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now, my wrap-up for today is really about the disrespect that Steph Curry is still receiving by several members of the media. And what's ridiculous about this is beyond ridiculous. Now, look, Steph Curry has 4 rings in 8 years. Steph Curry, if you will, drove the bus in the 4th championship. He was on the bus with Kevin Durant for 2 of those championships. And of course, he was the babyface assassin in the 1st championship that the Golden State Warriors won. Steph Curry is a different kind of basketball player. Now, there's all this talk about the top 5 NBA players that belong on Mount Rushmore and the top 10 NBA players of all time. And at this point, I mean, you have to have Steph Curry in your top 10 NBA players of all time. It's an era thing. You can't ignore what Wilt Chamberlain did. You can't ignore what Jerry Rice did. Too many people forget about Elgin Baylor when you go back. For people of my generation, Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, hands down, never seen anybody better. Apologies to Kobe. Michael Jordan was the best basketball player of all time. The difference between a Michael Jordan and a Steph Curry is that Steph Curry is a basketball player that, quite frankly, is for everyone. Now, here's the point. I love watching Jordan play, but could I put my tongue out and could I dunk a basketball in any way similar to Michael Jordan? And the answer is no. Now, if I was going to try to do any of this, I would have to take some of my buddies and we'd run over to the shorter basketball hoops at an elementary school to practice. That is it. But in a real life game, there's no way I could emulate in any way what a Michael Jordan does. Steph Curry, on the other hand, is for everyone. And that's why Steph Curry has absolutely, without a doubt, revolutionized the basketball game today. That's why he is clearly in the top 10 NBA basketball players of all time and is probably in the top 5 most influential basketball players of all time because he has changed the game for everyone. Now, I cite back to my coaching days when the kids started showing up with Under Armour basketball shoes, and instead of doing layups before practice and after practice, and instead of trying to pretend like they were Kobe or Michael Jordan, they started pretending like they were Steph Curry shooting three-pointers. And this went on and on and on, season after season. And if you think about it, Steph has changed the game for everyone because everyone can shoot a three. Now, not everyone can shoot like Steph Curry, that's clear, but none of us can actually dunk like Michael Jordan. So he flat out changed the game for everyone, and we see it now in college. We see it in high school basketball. We see it in AAU basketball. And, of course, we're seeing it in the NBA. Just take a look at the Golden State Warriors' own roster and one Jordan Poole. I was out walking the dog earlier today, and I should point out a special shout-out to Kevin Hart, who came up with the line that the vid is in the house. We have the vid in the house as my wife and one of the boys is down with the vid. And so far I have tested negative somehow. So shout out for that term, the vid, to Kevin Hart. So I'm walking the dog with the mask on, and I see my very first ever kid under the age of 15 wearing a Jordan Poole shirt. Why is that kid wearing a Jordan Poole shirt? It's because Jordan shoots threes. Jordan shoots game-winning threes. Jordan shoots buzzer beaters at the end of quarters in the NBA Finals. Jordan can make a half quarter on a regular basis. Steph Curry just looks down the roster, and now he sees these young kids coming up who are following in his footsteps. Look, not saying Jordan Poole is the next Steph Curry, but he's got a lot of Curry in his game, which takes me right back to the media and the unjustified stance that I saw one Skip Bayless take on his show earlier in the week. Now, I wasn't actually going to mention his name by name, but hell, why the hell not? Skip Bayless was on his show, and he was talking about he was ripping on Steph Curry. He actually had the nerve to say that Steph Curry doesn't belong in the top 10 NBA basketball players of all time. He actually had the nerve to actually sit there and psychoanalyze the series. He went on to complain about Steph Curry's performance in Game 1 and Game 3 of the NBA Finals this year. He basically said that somebody who's in the top 10 NBA players of all time would not have had that kind of performance that he had in those two particular games. Fact, Skip, that Steph Curry averaged over 30 points throughout all 6 games of the NBA Finals. That is a fact. The fact is that Steph Curry led his team to the NBA Finals. The fact is that Steph Curry is no longer 25 years old and has aged and slowed down just a little bit, which is why it wasn't surprising that in a 6-game series, you might have Steph Curry have a game and a half off. That's pretty much what we've seen all season long, Skip, if you paid any attention to the daily progress of the Golden State Warriors. It is ridiculous to actually jump up onto national television and attempt to knock down a player who has just won the NBA Finals Most Valuable Player, who has taken home his 4th NBA title in 8 years, and for you to jump on national television and to try to knock him down is absolutely delusional. Skip Bayless, you, my friend, are as delusional as the Brooklyn Nets if they decide to give Kyrie Irving that money. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining me on the Disturbance today. Do check out our Big Sports website when you have a chance at Disturbance.live. For The Disturbance, I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
The Disturbance is a production of the Mighty Rip Podcast Network. For more witty, 100% independent sports coverage, check out our big website at mighty.rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.